Hi, everyone. My name is Anant, and today I'm excited to talk to you about the fastest way to build and deploy enterprise AI applications with Writer. Before I get into how we think about enterprise AI applications, about building them and deploying them, I want to take a moment to think about how we got here today. Not long ago, the internet changed our lives completely. Email came along, smartphones came along, and then we had AI. I still remember my days in school, having to learn to write cursive. Maybe some of you can relate. And now we have LLMs generating text, audio, visuals for us at a rapid pace. My takeaway is that AI is not another technology upgrade. It's going to be a complete transformation. It's going to be the same feeling maybe your parents might have had when they first used a smartphone after not having seen one ever before in their life. And the reason this is important is it's going to impact all areas of how we do work, how we do business, and how even on our personal lives. And this is where Writer comes along. Writer's mission is to transform work. We're a full-stack enterprise Gen AI company. We work with 40+ of the Fortune 500 logos. You can see them on the left-hand side. Recently, I'm proud to announce we became a leader on the Gartner Quadrant, focused on the emerging market section for Gen AI technologies. What I want to talk about today is the workflow and use cases that we've seen in production with our customers today, how they've been created, how they've been deployed and built. I also want to showcase a little bit of our platform and then go in to actually show you live what deploying and building an AI application looks like in real time and how simple it can actually be. So firstly, why is this all important? We said AI applications will be transformative, but we've also realized today that enterprise-grade Gen AI is challenging. We've seen consistently we have issues such as low accuracy, low adoption, low efficiencies, and these problems are top of mind for all our customers. The way we try to tackle this is by offering a full-stack approach. We offer our own proprietary models as well as our AI platform, which we call AI Studio, to build your applications. And that's where the bulk of the time of the presentation will be spent today. Before I get into the details of the platform, I want to spend a few minutes on why DIY is challenging. A lot of customers, even today at the Writer booth in the other hall, came to us and said, oh, we have various components such as a vector DB, we have our own models, or we want to use different competitors' models. Can we all put it together and it should work, right? The reality is it doesn't actually work. You get pretty close, but not quite close enough to put it in production. And especially if you're in a regulated industry like finance or pharma, it's even worse because you can't put something in production with 80% accuracy. Even 95% probably is not good enough. So that's where we sort of come in. We believe that full stack will become the dominant design in Gen AI. There's going to be a few different components. You're going to need LLMs, as we're familiar. You're going to need RAG, retrieval augmented generation for knowledge. And then you're going to need AI Studio combined with your guardrails to make all this very applicable for your end customers. So this is what Writer does in a nutshell. We have our top benchmarked LLMs. We focus on specific domains as well. So we're one of the few providers in the space that has a dedicated finance as well as medical model. Our latest chat model, which we call Palmyra v4, has been benchmarked to be on par with the top models of the industry. We connect your data up in a secure manner using Knowledge Graph, and then we build our AI applications on top of them. And this is where I want to go into the details of our platform. So with all this sort of combination, we believe that the full stack of Writer unlocks faster AI transformation, focusing on quality, efficiency, and adoption. So for the workshop, I didn't just want to be presenting and showcasing our platform throughout the talk today. We do have some interactive components. So I'm going to bring that up in a few minutes as well. So hopefully that will spur some more discussion and questions as well. The first thing I want to do is actually show you the platform. So when we go into app.writer.com, which is the home screen, you can see that immediately a number of applications jump right at you. We have Ask Writer, the blog builder, recaps, and image analyzer. And these applications are what our customers today are using in production to solve their use cases. A use case could be as simple as, can you tell me what this image represents, and is it compliant with one of our standards? I was actually surprised how often this came up with our customers. One of the largest ones we work with, Mars, on their pet side, had to analyze images of their pets. I'm going to pull up a quick example to show you what that looks like. I enjoyed this one because I recently was house sitting for my sister-in-law's pet in the US, and dog lovers and pet lovers have a very strong affinity to their pet. And there's actually many regulations around this saying, you cannot actually display animals of certain weight and with items of clothing in the media because the companies get fined. So, and it's not a small amount. If customers report this, especially owners, there's a big sort of problem with this. And this translates to other industries as well. So if I show you a quick example of how our technology works, if I say something like, can you describe this image and explain what you see, I'm giving a very simple sort of prompt, even a question. It doesn't even look like a prompt in the truest sense. And on the left-hand side, you see the inputs. On the right-hand side, you will see the outputs. And it explains, you see a pug dog sitting on the dirt. It's facing towards, looking slightly to its left. It's able to capture all sort of the nuances of the image. And this is very useful because customers are able to take these individual apps that I'm showing you and drag and drop them into any application that they need. And this is where the magic happens. Right now, I'm showing you how to solve a simple use case, describe an image. But when we get to workflows, when we get to the process, we're able to take this technology and its modular components and solve an end-to-end workflow. And this is where the Writer framework comes in. The Writer framework is going to be the fastest way to build and deploy AI applications. It is a no-code builder on the front end, which basically means you can use your mouse and keyboard, you can drag and drop components, and you can put them on the screen to create your application. On the back end is Python. So you will need a little bit of programming experience to wrangle and wrap your head around the application, but with it, you can build very powerful features. I want to give you a quick example of one of the newer Writer framework applications we built for the pharma industry. So over here, you see the Writer framework. This looks like a standard web application. You see a couple tabs on the top right-hand side. You see a sidebar that's collapsible. You see some button clicks and a selector. And you see more information down below. What this diagram of the web app represents is that when a user clicks on a particular drug, they're able to get all the associated information with it. So for example, if they click on Stelara, the LLM you can see with the blue bar at top starts to load all the information that it can find on Stelara. This is pulling from regulated sources like the FDA, the EMA in Europe, as well as the PubMed journal. It takes the information and pulls the prescribing information. The prescribing information is a little white booklet that you might see in a medicine when you open it up. If you open up a Tylenol or a Panado and you see a little pamphlet, that's what the prescribing information is. If you've ever tried to read it, it might actually give you a headache. There's so much information inside of it. So instead of seeing the full prescribing information that can go on and on and on, we use the model to quickly summarize and pull out the key information, such as the dosage and administration, the warnings and cautions, as well as the adverse reactions. We also pull in the latest information from all the journals about the particular drug. And this showcases that in real time, we can bring in information from many different sources. If you work in the retail space, we might swap out PubMed for maybe Google Trends to get in your SEO keywords. If you work in the finance space, we might use one of the APIs to bring in real-time investment information, real-time stock information. So all this information is seen and understood by the LLM, and it's able to give you a range of data back. I want to show you a quick example of how we can use the LLM to sort of analyze large amounts of information at once. A common question in the healthcare space is, how does the drug respond to various types of questions by doctors regarding things like the safety and the side effects, the drug indications, the efficacy in clinical trials? So what you can do is you can use a range of chat assistants to actually generate what's called standard response documents. And today, we have large pharma companies spending hours and hours per letter to get all the relevant information sent back to the doctor. All this information that's been shown here in real time is actually being pulled from a knowledge graph. So the information is being pulled from a secure, reliable way, and you can always see the sources of the data on the back end, so you know that there's trust and reliability. Before going further into the writer framework, I want to quickly switch to a more interactive component because, as I learned in my college degree, our attention spans are not that long these days. So let's try and do this sort of interactive activity. You will need your cell phones. So for those who are already on, I thank you in advance. So please go to menti.com and enter the code, or you can use the QR code. I'll give everybody a minute or two to sign up. And you can put some sort of a username, it can be your name, it can be something fictional, whatever feels most comfortable. I'll give it another 15 seconds just to get people on. I have a series of short questions where I'm just curious to understand people's perspectives of how they think about AI use cases, as well as their top problems today. And then hopefully, for the last few minutes of the discussion today, we can be more tailored to some of the top use cases. Okay, the first one is very easy. Open-ended question. What is your company? We'll spend a very short amount of time here, but just to get a grasp of who's in the room so we can share it with everybody. And we'll hopefully see results in real time. So thank you for the writer folks, my colleagues, to kick this off. Okay, so we saw a range of different companies, and I'm going to move on into the next question, which is the type of skill set. And I've left this very broad and very open-ended, but do you think that you're more of a business user, you work on the business side, or the technical user? You can also select both if it's more applicable. So at the moment, technical user seems to be edging out a little bit. I see about 10, 15 responses in. I'll give it another few seconds to get the remaining in. Okay, so very even mix of folks in. So a mixture of business and technical. And I'm hoping to leave at least a few minutes of Q&A towards the end so can go deeper into any one section. The next is asking about your area of focus. Where do you see today the real problems for Gen AI? At Writer, we've seen the biggest challenge of what we call POC purgatory, which is everybody takes the fancy tech stack that's on the internet. They use, the latest model, a ChatGPT, a Claude, and they say, let's put it into production. It actually doesn't meet their end-to-end use case. Because the challenge is, or more like the reality is, if you've been working on a business process or an automation for many, many years, a one-line chatbot is not going to go in and solve it for you. You can't just take every business process and solve it with a chatbot. And this is where we sort of come in and trying to transform your workflows in more detail. So I see a range of analytics. I see a range of fraud, as well as governance and standards. We do see a lot of compliance use cases. I very much like the fact that speech and transcription is important as well, because in the future, we really believe that AI is not only going to have text as an input, but it's definitely multimodal. There's going to be a mixture of both images as well as audio. Moving along into a more slightly more nuanced question, if you have top AI use cases in production, I'm very curious as to what those are. What we've seen today is we have companies like Vanguard using us to do investment research. We were helping their analysts summarize 10Ks, summarizing 10Qs at scale. We have companies like Uber who are automating their customer support processes. They're using our chatbots to take all the knowledge articles that they have and synthesize that into a more simpler way for the agents to actually answer the customer query. So instead of having to go through a 10-page document, it's now a simple question, Q&A, that they can answer. I see an interesting one of natural language to SQL, and I'm happy to say that our latest models will be able to support that, and that's a very sort of common use case of what we see today. The biggest one seems to be around research, which also speaks to the importance of RAG, or retrieval augmented generation, using a system of knowledge graph. There's a couple more questions, and now we're going to get into some of the more details about building your AI applications. This is sort of a points-based question, so you can select the points and apply them to the most applicable areas. But what are your biggest challenges on building AI apps? I have a feeling I know what the answer is going to be. It was going to be adoption of the build technology. But we'll see if the rest sort of concur. I hope this gives some insight as well with the large group of people that we have here, that this is somewhat a common problem across the different industries, across the different companies and roles, that getting adoption and learning this technology is really hard, which is why we don't recommend the DIY approach, especially when you need high quality and you need high adoption. And lastly, the final question is, which LLMs or AI platforms do you have experience with? And you're welcome to mention Writer if you've used it already, but anyone will do, just to get an idea of people's experience. So we have Llama, we have Copilot on Microsoft side. Llama, for those unfamiliar, is the way to build and deploy LLMs locally. And OpenAI, of course, ChatGPT. The things we see with Copilot and Claude is that they're very useful for individual productivity. But if you're trying to transform your workflows across an organization, across a business unit, you need more than a Copilot. Somebody came to me earlier and said, oh, hey, what about Azure ML? It's a great way to build out this workflow. It's true. Have you tried doing that? Do you know how hard it is to go in? I'm fortunate to have a couple engineering degrees, and it still takes me a very long time to go in to set up these workflows. It's not user-friendly. It's complicated. The worst thing you possibly want is a strong dependency on your engineering and business users when you need a business user to rely on an engineer to make a single change to a prompt. The beauty of Writer is that it simplifies all of this with a very easy-to-use UI. I now want to switch back to an open-ended sort of view of the Writer framework. What you see here is a behind-the-scenes view of what the Writer application looks like. And hopefully when you read the title today, you may have thought that I was going to give you a framework to think through this, a mental model of sorts, but actually our product is called the Writer framework. No code on the front and Python on the back. Everything I've showed you today is all drag and drop. We can go in and quickly create UIs of any sort of shape and size. So let's say we start in by adding a couple components here from the left-hand side. These are all completely customizable, and what we're going to do as a starting point is take our screen and split it into two. We're then going to add in a section. If you've ever used Figma, if you've ever done a mock diagram, ever on a pen and paper, it turns out now it's actually easier to do it with no-code tools like this one. Let's add in another section on the right-hand side. Let's say you have a team that has multiple different units, and we need to filter in a couple tabs. So just like that, you can go in, and within seconds, you can create different workflows for different teams. If you need a range of buttons and images, you scroll down, or you search, and you can drag and drop various components into the UI. All you then have to do is, on the back end, you open up the code view over here with a little bit of Python, you connect it up to the LLM. Because Writer owns the framework product, we've made it in one line. You can connect up to the LLM, create a prompt, and generate information. So instead of showing you in a lot of detail how to build an application, which takes time, but I'd rather show you a fully fledged one. This was what's known as the finance app on the Writer framework, akin to the medical app. This was built on the technology in about 3 to 4 days. It's deployed on the URL above with a simple one-line command of writer deploy. It's hosted on our cloud technology. It can be hosted on your own hyperscalers if you use AWS, if you use Microsoft. It's compatible with all. And it makes building and deploying apps very, very easy. For this particular one, it was related to pulling in real-time stock data. One thing the Writer framework shines at is actually analytics and graphs. You may have heard that LLMs are not particularly good at math or at long-term reasoning. We believe with the framework, you're able to solve this problem. So you can go in, pull all sorts of data. If you go in, you want to see the latest stock price for NVIDIA, you can do that, and the data sort of goes in and then refreshes. The interesting piece about the Writer framework is you can host many different data sources. So here we see sort of Tesla's latest stock price compared to the S&P performance. And this is all useful information. But at the moment, you can get all this information by going onto Google Finance, Yahoo Finance, and you'll see all this information there. Things like the stock data, income data, 10K. The beauty of the LLM technology is that everything you're seeing here, the LLM sees as well. So if you go in within this purple box and you go analyze trends, you can see that the LLM is taking all the data for NVIDIA or for Tesla, and it's analyzing it to make an analysis of the stock and of how it's performing. And then it will load here in this left-hand side. So you can see here it's focusing on the fluctuation. Tesla is notoriously volatile. Based on this, it says it's a high-growth stock, but it has significant risk associated with it, so keep that in mind. This is what we have clients, again, like Vanguard and Goldman Sachs using it to understand how they can speed up their workflows. This is not just a single use case of analyzing 1 or 2 documents, but rather the entire end-to-end process that's taking them days or weeks today. The next piece I quickly want to show you is how our chat system works. Chatbots are not the solution for every single problem, but they definitely are useful. An example could be, how does a strategy of one company compare to another? So if you were to go in and say something like, how does NVIDIA's AI strategy compare to Apple? You can see that the LLM is able to take a somewhat ambiguous question. It's able to process this using the dedicated financial model that we have. Using the 10K on the right-hand side, it's able to analyze all the contextual information, all being pulled in real time, and it's able to generate a sub-question and give you back the answer. The sub-question is important because it breaks down the question into multiple components to provide traceability and transparency as to where the answer came from. So you can see here, it shows NVIDIA is heavily invested in AI, and it then compares this a little bit about Apple's AI strategy, and it goes into a bit more detail. Finally, the last thing I want to focus is on visualizations. Income statements are notoriously tricky to read if you look at them very often. And what you can do with the framework is you can create graphs very easily to help visualize things like revenue, net income, and operating income. I hope this gives you an idea of what the Writer framework can do. The Writer framework is geared towards technical users. I know there was a bunch of business users in the audience today. Within our AI studio, we do have a no-code builder, and you can see this over here. The no-code builder is targeted for business users. It doesn't require any programming, and every piece you make, an example being the image analyzer, is modular and can be integrated into any other software. I know we have about 5 minutes left, and I want to pause if there's any questions from the audience. And I believe there'll be a mic to go around. Any thoughts or questions on how the writer framework works? Any questions about AI Studio? Would this be applicable to your workflows that you have today? Hi, at the back. Thank you.
So there are some use cases that handle confidential data, like insurance,
Yep.
medicine, or bank. If they are going to provide some input data for your framework, have you addressed the confidentiality of such inputs?
Yes.
If yes, how?
Yeah, 100%. So, this is a common question we get on all aspects of the AI Studio platform. So within Writer, every data piece that we get from a customer is only used for that customer's workflow itself. So for example, if you need to analyze, let's say, a confidential insurance document, this would go into our AI Studio system, but it's entirely there for the customer's app only. In other words, it is not accessible by anybody else in the organization. If you delete it from your application, it's not stored anywhere on our system or platform. The data never persists for any period of time. It's never used to train the models in any such way. So this is how we respect the customer's sort of trust and transparency. And we also often provide details of what our models are actually trained on, so the customer can audit that and see. There's been notorious cases in the past where programmers from big companies have put in confidential code into models, and that same code then gets displayed and produced when somebody else asks to write a snippet of code. That has never happened on ours because we never train on customer data. Any other questions? Hi. Yes, we are SOC 2 compliant. We have a whole host of certifications as well that we commonly share out as well. Hi.
So if I got it correctly, you process both image and text in the same framework. Is it a combination of models that you're using to do so, or you come up with a specific new model?
So we have a pretty robust engineering and data science team. So we have a whole host of models. And I actually have one slide to show the track record of our model innovation. And just to reiterate, because sometimes companies and customers often get confused, these are entirely built in-house by the Writer team. They're all proprietary. There's nothing built on anything external from what's in the market today. You can see we've been doing this for 4.5 years already. So where we are today in 2024, for the image question, we typically recommend using our Palmyra vision model. Palmyra is the name of the family of LLMs that we have. We just released our domain-specific models as Palmyra Med and Fin. We also have released our latest chat model, which is on par with the latest models in industry. If you check out the Stanford benchmarks, you see this. It's called Palmyra X004. And I gave you sort of an indication with the Writer framework that Palmyra Actions is actually coming soon. Today, when people are working on their business problems, it's typically on individual use cases, such as, can you help me write this blog post? Can you maybe revamp this particular email or report or document for me? Can you help me with this research? Problems tackled in isolation. Palmyra Actions is going to spread across many different business units and teams. It's about tackling that end-to-end workflow. It's about taking a 17-step process to support your customers' supports and bring that down into hopefully a lot fewer steps. So Palmyra Actions is currently in beta, and we're testing it internally. Hi. On the left.
Thanks for the presentation. So if my use case is a bit more involved, for example, I need also to train on my set of data, is Writer also a solution for me, or not necessarily?
Yes, definitely. So one thing I didn't get into in too much detail is our knowledge graph or RAG system. So we've also built that completely in-house. It's part of the Writer full stack. I have a slide on that over here. It's basically this the second component, knowledge graph. And with this, you can do two things. So one, if your data is in a more structured format, and I explain structured these days as PDFs, Word documents, Excel, let's just say a type of a document, you can use an API or an upload service or a data connector to put that data inside the LLM. If it's in a more, let's say, verbose format, like a database or a Hive table or some sort of database structure, you can do that programmatically with the API as well. So hopefully those two formats meet the problems you need.
Thanks.
I think we have time for one last question, if there is one. Otherwise, thank you very much. And then just the last call out, we have a writer dinner. We have, I believe, 1 or 2 spots remaining tonight. So please contact Brian at the writer booth or at the table on the right-hand side after the talk today if you're interested. Thank you.